when you have them asked. So, in any event, you know, I think you're an honest man, you're going to be out in 4 months, we'll see. We'll be able to do better business with your replacement.
Yeah, and so that is, for both of those two shortcomings, 100% why I'm supporting Amanda. Those are two shortcomings that she doesn't have. She's super responsive. And the other thing, yeah. Yeah, working with the mayor. You know, she's got a long history with that mayor. And so, in my own preference, she'd be working with Janie Gellis. She would get elected first, and then she would also be working with Janie Gellis, who I would have a better working relationship with. But the thing is that you have to know, and this is interesting, right? City Council doesn't have any legal standing in the Board of Adjustment. It doesn't have any legal standing at excise and license hearings. When I go there, the fact that I say I'm the council person is legally not supposed to have any more weight than anybody else. And so the fact when I work with people on those cases, it is to help them build their case, not to go in there and say, I'm the council person, this is how it should be, because they don't have to listen to that.
Well, let me just make one final point. The city attorney also attends these meetings. And if you can't attend or you don't feel like you have influence there, why wouldn't it be possible to meet with the city attorney on specific instances so the city attorney knows that, you know, how you feel and how the community feels, and doesn't just sit there, you know, doodling on his pad or playing on his cell phone?
Because the city attorney, in that case, it's a community planning and development attorney, so the city attorney's office is huge, and that each agency has its own dedicated attorneys. The one that sits in the planning board is a city community planning and development attorney, and he represents their interests. And they're looking at it essentially as objectively as they possibly can. They do not, if they, the thing that you got, it sounds like is what you would get, is if they say that they have no objection, you know, it's up to the board, then it's really, you know, if they cared, they would only say, we think the board should find in such a way. But if they say we have no objection, they're really leaving it up to the board. And then it is wholly up to the opponents to make the case based on the criteria, the 5 hardship criteria, that this case does not warrant relief. And so, so it's really not a stacked deck. The thing that I keep stressing is you have to know how to fight, and that's one of those things that, again, I'm sorry if I didn't communicate it or we didn't have it in a timely manner, but you know, that's what I try to teach, is how to fight in the forum the appropriate way, because we did have a success in December where there was a rezoning in Sunnyside again, where a week before that hearing at planning board, sat down, and I couldn't talk because it was a pending application. I couldn't talk to them about their rezoning, but I had lost this fight on council once before, where I was the only vote in opposition on council for essentially trying to do the right thing. My colleagues failed to see it or hear it. And so since that was 2 blocks away from this rezoning, what I did is I sat down and I said, I can't talk to you about your rezoning, but I can talk to you about this other one. Let me tell you a story over here, sort of like when lawyers talk hypothetically. And I spoke about how you could have fought, how I tried to fight that other one, and that you're not going to win this fight in council because it's a political decision. Where you can win that is at planning board. And what they did is they showed up at planning board, and they put together what Joel Noble, the chair of planning board, said, and I quote, "This is the best presentation I've ever seen since my time on planning board." And they went and they beat that thing down, not because it's too much traffic and it's too much height and it's going to shade my thing and it's going to create congestion and construction traffic, which is going to do all those things if we were going through. That's not what they're there to judge. And so they hit it on the fact that the zone district was not appropriate for a local street. It's only designed for arterial. There is no arterial within, well, you know, that the height is inconsistent with the station area plan. And they hit it on the criteria. And it won a recommendation of denial to council. And so you can win, but you have to be focused on the criteria that they are judging you on. And so no matter how wrong something is, if you're not making the case on the criteria that is being meted out in that arena, it still goes through. And so the fortunate thing is the planning board is not a political, it sort of weirdly is getting that way, but it's not, it's sort of apolitical. And so if you go and you make the case on the criteria, and the planning board is, and the Board of Adjustment is to some degree the same way. If you hit them on the criteria that they're reviewing it on, that's how you can be successful.
Okay. For time, yeah. Thank you, Councilman Espinoza. So up next, we have volunteer Christine O'Connor here to talk about Let Denver Vote. And I believe you are considered a community advocate and actually recently got an INC award for that. So
thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you, Trevor. And thank you for hosting me. It's really fun to watch another RNO. I live way on the other side of town in Lowry, and our RNO meetings, first of all, we don't sit like this, and I really like it. Do you always face each other? It's kind of fun. It's kind of fun. And I hear the stuff about Raphael, but just trust me, he's got his hands digging a lot more than our city council person. I mean, I heard a lot tonight that he's working on. So he may not be perfect, none of us are, but I'm here to talk to you about something else. My name is Christine O'Connor. I'm a volunteer for Let Denver Vote, and that is an initiative that is going to be on your June 4th runoff ballot. Okay, I'm like assuming we're going to have a runoff. I may be wrong, but it's right now, it's measure initiative number 302. And I'm here to ask you to vote yes. And I do this because I care about people getting to vote on big projects. I mean, if I had my druthers, I think we would have been able to vote on the drainage fee to help the CDOT I-70 project. Instead of having it be pushed through as a capital project under wastewater, we should have been able to vote on Amazon, whether we even wanted to spend hundreds of thousands wooing Amazon. But we don't get to decide these things. So Initiative 302 is going to let us decide whether or not we want to spend your taxpayer dollars hosting or bidding on an Olympics. Okay, now we started this January of 2018, and you may recall we spent a lot of money as a city trying to beat Reno and Salt Lake City and get chosen to have to even bid on the Winter Olympics. They won't release the amount of money we spent, but it was probably hundreds of thousands through Visit Denver, economic development. We basically put together a proposal, the city did. And we never had any say in that. Now, fortunately, you can take a deep breath. Salt Lake City was chosen in December after we were almost on the ballot. I know, how many of you have seen this, Let Denver Vote, and sign that petition to get us on the ballot? I'm sure a lot of you have, because I see some of the petition gatherers in your group. So, but right in the middle of that campaign, trying to get this on the ballot, Salt Lake City was chosen, and people went, oh, thank God, we dodged a bullet. We don't need to worry about this anymore. They're not coming to Denver. We're off the table. But we do need to worry about it. Things can change. In 10 years, they can decide to try to host the Winter Olympics. It can come up again and again. And the reason we want this initiative is it says no taxpayer resources, no taxpayer dollars can be spent on a bid unless there's a vote first, or can be spent on hosting unless there's a bid first. That means economic development can't devote 5 of its staff members for a few weeks to try to evaluate this unless we give them the go-ahead. The other thing it does is it makes sure that we don't sign a blank check to the International Olympics Committee. I don't know how familiar you are with how it works, but except for one city, The International Olympics Committee requires that they sign a check to cover cost overruns. The IOC doesn't want to pay for cost overruns if there's no snow or if there's a terrorism or transportation snafu. So they want the city that's hosting to write that blank check. This initiative will make sure that our city doesn't write a blank check unless we decide to. So, there may be half this room may say, fine, let's write them a blank check. I really want to have the Olympics. The point is we get to vote first. That's what this is about. And I think you know that the Olympics bring a lot of problems with them. Traffic, construction. It's a big deal. We're on the global whatever, for 17 days. This is what goes on in your city and then in your region. So before we do that, we have to have a vote. So, a couple of other things. Most of you probably weren't, but in 1972, we were all set to host the Olympics until Governor Lamb came and said, oh, wait a minute, do we really want to spend the money? But that was a statewide vote. It's a little bit different. That's further down the line, and he was able to stop it, and people said, no, we don't want to spend any tax money, bond money, statewide. But this is just for the city, just to sort of say, take a breath first. Let's see if we want an investment like that. We have affordable housing that we should be putting millions into. We have transit issues we should be spending on. So let's see. I'm asking you to vote yes, and this is the tricky part. You may be against the Olympics, and you might want to say, I'm going to vote no, because I don't want the Olympics. That's wrong. The initiative prohibits the city from spending money towards the Olympics without voter approval. You want to say, yes, that's the measure I want to protect my taxpayer dollars. It's really important. And if you do want the Olympics, and some people do, I did a lot of petitioning, and there are people who really, not many, but I would say maybe 5% who say, oh, I think it'd be great. Bring it on. And then you say, well, do you want it without a say in spending our taxpayer dollars? They said, oh no, I want to vote first. So we're in agreement. This is a really non-controversial issue, I think, compared to 300 or compared to zoning issues. This is kind of a no-brainer. So I'm asking you to vote. I'm also looking for volunteers. We have a brand new flyer that's being printed. I copied it on paper, but it's going to be on a card, and we're going to be going to the voters who vote in the runoff, the regular voters, and delivering this card. It has two sides. It's very well done, and I'm going to pass this out. But we'll need people who are working on other campaigns to drop this at the same time, or after the May election to just drop this. So let us know. I'll stay around for a while, and you can sign up with me if you're not on the list. So questions? Any questions? You gotta have one question for me. Raphael, thank you.
So the proponents were talking about, well, let's do a statewide vote. Why would it be important for Denver to have a separate vote? Is it something akin to, say, 110, where Denver voted 85% for a transportation tax for mobility, yet the state crushed it?
It's a little bit different. It's that we want to stop that extraordinary taxpayer expense of putting together a bid, which will be done at the city level. The state might help host, and the state might have a referendum 2 or 3 years down the line. As a matter of fact, the organizers, the exploratory committee, did promise that after 2020, they would have a statewide vote. But Chicago spent $50 million just on a bid. The city spent it. And then at the very last minute, Mayor Daley pulled it because the International Olympic people wanted a fiscal guarantee, a blank check. And his advisor said, no, we can't do that. We don't want to go down the road of spending $10 million on a bid without a vote. So the difference between the state and the city is that it would probably be the city that does the guarantee and the city that does the bid. And then they'll bring in the outlying areas. So if they did go ahead, let's say we all voted, sure, have the Olympics, and they went ahead and did a bid and we got it. it could still go to a statewide vote at that point. But the other problem is Tabor has come in since then. It's a little tricky. Tabor wasn't around in 72. So, yeah.
Only for the Olympics? I mean, could it also be for Super Bowl or whatever?
Or FIFA. Right now we're in the competition for FIFA, the World Cup, and that's pretty big too. That's a really good question, and I wish we thought of that before we did this petition. I'm so glad you asked, because when I was out petitioning, and we were out petitioning, a lot of people asked us that. Can't you get this measure to apply to all these mega projects? We really are tired in Denver of all the glitter and the idea that we have to spend on these big projects. So it's a great idea, but we didn't do it. I'm kind of kicking myself. Would have been great. So I'm going to pass the flyers out, and I'll stay around in case some of you can volunteer. Yes?
Council could amend it in 6 months after it's adopted.
I am aware of that because that's what they did with the green roof.
But then they could add FIFA, and they could add...
Oh, they could amend it that way. Hey, you know what? I hadn't thought of that. That's great. Thank you so much for letting me speak.
Thanks, Christine. So let's go for committee updates. Paul?
Nothing.
There we are. Nothing from Design and Preservation. There's nothing for liquor. Pat, anything from social? Nothing from transportation. Ray, land use and planning? Nothing. Angela, save me. Any updates?
Sure. So I'm with the Sustainability Committee. My name is Angela, and we are set to have our Earth Week celebration at the Garage Community Center, which is at 32nd and Osceola, on Saturday, April 27th, between 10 a.m. and 1 p.m. It's short because there's no things there that day, but we're going to have some activities for children, face painting, probably composting sort of workshop. EcoCycle will be there to answer all your recycling and trash questions. So I really encourage everybody to come out. Hopefully it'll be a lovely day. And I'll be posting things on Nextdoor and Facebook as well. If you have any questions, just come talk to me afterwards, or if you'd like to come to our next meeting, also come talk to me. That will be Tuesday, April 16th, in the evening at 7 p.m., also at the Garage Community Center. So, thanks so much.
Thanks, Angela. So with that, we'll open the floor for non-agenda items.